I I was able to quadruple the size of my agency from my living room in the past 18 months. I wasn't on a plane. I wasn't working super late at night. All the things that you think you have to do as an entrepreneur to be successful. I wish I knew that back when I was getting on that plane
Mm.
and leaving my young kids with their mom and doing the things that I felt I absolutely had to do again to provide and protect. There is a balance that's achievable that I don't think we always embrace.
Man, well, listen, we got another episode of World's Greatest Game. We
So,
back, season 2. We got a little new look. It's daytime, so we appreciate that. But man, I'm excited because I got my brother Ahmed here, man. So, um, kindred spirits, man. We connected back on the agency tip.
yep.
You did it far better than me, and are continuing to, and mentoring and teaching a lot of folks. But when we connected, you wanted to have a different conversation here.
Yeah.
So before we jump into that, I want to, man, just give a little bit about your background and all the greatness, because this is still world's greatest game. So we still got to talk about the process and how you get there. So just talk a little bit about your origin story from a career standpoint and what led to you being in that seat as one of the best and biggest agency owners in the country.
So man. I mean, it's funny because it's like a lot of people that have known me professionally think, I'm a city guy, right? I'm a country boy, man. I was born in a small town, Ohio, and I think one of those things where when you grow up in a small town, you either are determined to leave or you stay. And I told my dad when I was 13 or 14 that I was getting out, and I was blessed to go to school. Went to Miami University in Ohio, and really got. I think I tell people jokingly it's called a public Ivy. So got a solid background in business though, but also I think got a solid background in just dealing with diverse groups and diverse people. Got my master's in sports marketing from West Virginia University, and actually went to work at Nike. It's one of those things where when I go to talk to people, young people especially, I kind of tell them that my story is a great story to hear, but it's also a cautionary tale because I'm good at what I do, but I've also been lucky and blessed along the journey, and I think going to Nike was a perfect example. To finish my grad program, we had to do an internship, right? Okay. All of my classmates are applying, 5, 6, 7, 8, shotgun approach to get what they wanted. Me, in a moment of either confidence, arrogance, or stupidity, applied to one place.
Or all three.
Exactly. Nike.
Yeah.
And, dating myself a little bit, it's funny. I came home from class, opened the mailbox, had a ding letter. Actually, went in the house.
Definitely aged yourself with that.
Had a ding letter.
Wow.
In the mailbox.
Oh.
Went
Never
in the
seen
house,
one of those.
I'm getting ready to age myself again. Went in the house and checked my answering machine. And had a message asking me if I could do an interview.
I know your your answer machine message was so smooth though.
Oh, bruh.
Oh, I know you had the real smooth voice on there, some music in the background. Oh, I wish I could have heard that one.
That. But asked me if I could do it. So I did the interview, got the internship, spent almost 6 years at Nike, and learned a lot. I mean, it's an amazing brand an amazing place to learn, but it also, I think, taught me a lot about personal branding, because when I left Nike to go to the agency business, I was running from that one-way ticket to Oregon because I'd already been there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they give brothers the kind of get out here, come try it, it's not that bad speech. Because I had been there as an intern at the time, I was like, it is that bad. And so I started looking for a job and trying to figure out what I wanted to go do. And honestly, I was looking at client side marketing opportunities. Knew that I wanted to stay kind of in the marketing and the brand space. Didn't want to go to Oregon. Outside of that, I was pretty open. Going to date myself one more time. My resume was on Monster, and got a call from a recruiter that was recruiting for an agency. And the agency was hiring someone to come work in an account that specialized in footwear and apparel. And so, my Nike experience, obviously added up. I was in my late 20s, and so still kind of in that place where wasn't married, had a girlfriend that was going to soon become a fiance, no kids. So I had picked up and moved, 3 times in 6 years with Nike, so it wasn't a big deal. So I moved to Minneapolis, took an agency job there at a place called Campbell Methune. Actually did what at the time just felt normal, but some really dope early work for Kmart, and doing digital promotion, but really kind of doing some work that was integrating TV and using TV to drive to digital engagement. Shit that's normal right now, but back in 1999, 2000 was a big breakthrough.
Got it.
Learned 2 things. One, I love the agency business, and I hated Minneapolis. And so for the second time in almost a 2-year period, I was looking for a job. Leo Burnett came calling. And it was interesting because it's funny, one of the lessons I learned when I was going through the process of getting hired at Leo, I called myself negotiating. I was haggling over about $5,000. And the recruiter, a woman by the name of Ann Ross, told me, she said, look, you're getting ready to go get a PhD in the marketing and advertising. You'll make that $5,000 up. Fair. And I went, I took the job and moved to Chicago.
That's a lesson right there, though. I don't even want you to run over that, because I think oftentimes a lot of people get caught up negotiating over $5,000 and $10,000 on the salary when they actually should be taking the job based off of what they're going to learn.
What they're going to learn and what it's going to position them to do next. And so I want to back up from it, because part of what I learned about at Nike was the value and the power from a work standpoint, or the detriment from a work standpoint of being known for what you do and where you work. And so when I was Ahmed that worked at Nike, I had no problem getting my phone calls returned. When I was Ahmed working at Campbell Methune on Kmart, I was a nigga working on Kmart.
Crickets.
Crickets. And so going to Leo Burnett, it was interesting because it's obviously a big name in the agency world. We did some amazing work on the U.S. Army, won some awards. But the thing I learned in that process was, because it was a government piece of business, there was this whole kind of minority spin, minority agency, women-owned, veterans-owned thing that after that point I knew nothing about. And so I ended up, after spending about a year kind of working on the general market side of the business, raising my hand, and again, either stupidity, seeing some opportunity and saying, hey, I want to run that. And so I was on the prime side working at Leo, managing the multicultural agencies. And candidly, what I realized is that there was a ton of opportunity, because the bar, as we know, has historically been lower for agencies in the cultural space versus, just the standard that clients typically hold their general market shops to.
And when you say that bar, though, right, because there's a couple things, right? There's, from an idea standpoint, I don't know that the bar is lower, but maybe from an infrastructure of the agency,
I think
you can get away with less.
It's infrastructure of the agency, but I do think at times, and it's self-fulfilling, right? They expect less. I think, and this is 2000. I think it's also changed in 21 years. In 2000, I think there was often an assumption that multicultural agencies were going to underperform compared to general market agencies, and when they did, as opposed to holding them accountable, they accepted it. And so for me, it was like saying, okay, there's an opportunity here to go out and create, a better mousetrap. Not saying all multicultural agencies were underperforming at that time, but there was a reality that, and it was clear that a high-performing multicultural agency who brought the strategy, the insights, the understanding of culture, brought the creativity, but also delivered that through with the level of executional excellence, managing the bottom line, I-dotting, T-crossing, all those things that they held their general market agencies accountable for. That was going to be a unique value proposition in the space. And so, rose to the VP level at Leo, and then late 2003, early 2004, launched my first agency, Common Ground. So and that's even interesting. My business partner on that first agency was still my business partner today, Sherman Wright. He and I are fraternity brothers, but didn't know each other. You know, we were two of the more senior African Americans in Chicago in the agency business at the time.
Was he at a different agency?
He was at a different agency. He was an agency called Upshot.
Okay.
And that was part of the model. My background was, you know, obviously African American, coming from a more traditional advertising agency.
Yeah.
Upshot was a promotional shop.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that really made us different in the space when we first launched, was nobody was talking about black retail. And you can appreciate that. So bringing a cultural lens to retail actually gave us a leg up and allowed us to differentiate ourselves in a way very quickly. So our integrated model, which again sounds like table stakes now, but again in 2003, 2004, when you're talking about advertising, promotion, and culture all in one shop, that's a unique value proposition.
Very unique.
It's different. So
I mean, I'm remembering like PEP and some of these, you know, Pep and those folks.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that you guys had that shopper marketing.
Yeah. It wasn't even called shopper. It was
promotions.
Yeah. But yeah, we had shopper.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that part of the origin story.
And so that was a tangible point of difference when we went in. But again, back to the learning about the importance of, you know, pedigree, you know, the people that didn't know what Campbell Methune was, when I started to go in as a new agency with no clients, you know, what I look back on now is a very shitty creds deck, but an idea and a vision. You know, the conversations always started like this. Because they took the meeting because somebody that knew, whatever. But it was like, so, you know, before you started your agency, what were you doing? You know, well, I was a vice president at Leo Burnett. And before that, I was 6 years at Nike. Arms
relax a little bit.
Arms come down.
Relax a little bit.
You know, and then you start to have real conversation. And then it's like, oh, you guys actually know what you're doing.
I think that's a part of entrepreneurship that a lot of people miss, right? Is that you've built up these credibility assets that led to it. Like there is an actual resume.
But it's where the game has changed, okay? Because like we had to have that. These youngins today can actually, in some instances, get it without that.
Well, that depends how disruptive your model is.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So some people are doing completely disruptive stuff, new to the world. Got it, right? If you have that, but that's 1% of the entrepreneurs.
Well, it is. But so it's interesting. So you know who Vic Mensa is, right? Yeah. So Vic interned with me going into his senior year of high school.
Okay.
And I always tried to make an effort to speak with my interns, and on the way out, what are you going to do? How can we help? You know, et cetera, et cetera. So Vic and I had an interesting conversation because he was talking about, you know, he was dealing with talking to his family about he didn't think college was for him.
Okay.
And, you know, I was about to launch into the old black father speech about, you know, the importance of education.
Yeah.
But I looked at him and I'm like, you know what? It's a different world. And this kid might actually be able to. So the advice I gave him as opposed to saying go to school was have a plan.
Yeah.
Because the conversation, even with your family, if you just say I'm not going to college and there's no but, it's a much more difficult conversation than school's not for me or it's not right now and having a plan. But I think that for me, I realized that I still think the importance of pedigree. Like I have these conversations all the time with guys who run off and they start their own agency, either fresh out of school or they left a record label. Yep. And they're like, how did you do it? And I tell them part of our secret sauce was I was 10 years in with Nike and Leo Burnett when I started the agency, and that gave us a leg up in terms of those initial conversations.
There's these connectivity points
that
I talk about in entrepreneurship, right? And you're hitting it. And again, it doesn't mean that everyone has to do it.
No.
But it definitely helps if you have it, right? Like where there's a will, there's a way. I get that. But people start to look at boxes because they're trying to figure out what they can connect with you on.
Right.
And it can be, I went to the same college as you.
Right.
Or somebody in my family went to that same college.
You read resumes from the bottom.
Absolutely, right? You connect on that standpoint. Okay, maybe there's that. Okay, no, maybe it was an extracurricular activity. I was a part of that club, that fraternity. I played that sport. Okay, maybe it's that. It could be that church. It could be I worked at that company, or I know about that company, or that agency. I've dealt with that agency.
Yep.
There's something that creates that familiarity to give us a bond with that person across from you, because they don't know you from anything. So they're just trying to latch on to something.
Find something to hold on to.
It's like being at that barbecue. It's somebody.
Right.
I know so-and-so and so. All right, now I'm comfortable at the barbecue. Right? Because it's a transaction. And transactions are uncomfortable. And one person's trying to sell in value.
Right.
All right. even if I need it, I'm kind of like, I don't know yet.
I don't know you.
I don't know you.
Right.
I never dealt. So let me see a case study.
Right.
But when you're first starting out, you don't have a case study.
Right.
So you're past.
That's the advice I give.
That's your case study.
The advice I give these guys all the time. I said, look, even if you have to do the work for free, get that first case study.
Get it done.
Because people are much more comfortable being second, third, fourth, and so on than they are being first. You know, once you get that first is typically going to come from a relationship, somebody that you know, somebody that knows somebody that has an incentive beyond the work that you do to give you a shot.
It's risk mitigation. Even when you're raising capital. You know, if you're raising money in the VC space, a lot of them are asking, like, have you put money in?
Yeah.
Did you put money in your own thing? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've been bootstrapping this for a little bit. That goes a long way.
My mentor told me when our first sale didn't go the way we wanted it to go, and we popped back up and started again, and we're killing it. He literally told me, he said, now you're worth something.
Yeah.
He said, because before that, you never failed. And nobody really could know how you were going to react to that.
That's a bar.
He was like, literally, he said, that golden child shit is cool, but you never failed. He said, when you
never been tested.
Yeah, when you fell and you got back up and you did what you did, he said, now there's you don't realize how much that increased and enhanced your value.
See, what I've always loved about, and you know, without going into all the details on Common Ground, but I love what you and Sherman have done now, because you're taking so many learnings and you built on it. And it's interesting because, like, most people, we think about the pivot, right?
Yeah.
Like, you kind of start with something, you pivot into something else, but there's also, like, the evolution.
Right.
Like, you know, the sequel.
Right.
Like, it just, sometimes it could be a little better than the first one. And you guys have been crushing 1035 so much faster.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
people ask us, they're like, what's the difference? I'm like, shit, we know what we're doing now. We actually know what we're doing.
I mean, because I call you all the time about organizational stuff. Like, and operates, like, that stuff is so second nature for you now. You're like, oh yeah.
But it's all the non-sexy stuff that's important to running a profitable, successful organization.
Yeah.
Is, it's learned behavior.
Yeah.
It's really learned behavior, and it takes time.
So now we gotta. I want to turn into, because there's some other moments.
Yeah.
That have led to your journey, your ascension to this mountaintop, and it's something we haven't talked about on this show because, frankly, I've been new to this world. So, and that's the topic of fatherhood.
Yep.
Right. So, I'm a new dad. I call you all the time. I'm 3 months in, so
absolutely.
I'm in the fight. I'm
getting
beat up.
I love watching the struggle.
I'm getting beat up every day.
Especially with a daughter.
Oh my goodness, girl dad all day trying to figure it out. And you're a father of two.
Yep.
Now, they're older.
Mm-hmm.
You've been through it, but I think what's also interesting is being a dad, and you were a new dad, newly married, and an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
We got to talk about that. You got to dive into that one.
Well, I mean, it's back to that. Sometimes you just do crazy things. Like we quit our jobs, and my son in December, January.
Okay.
My son was born in April of that year, and Sherman's daughter was born in May. Our kids are 7 weeks apart. So we were both starting a company, had left, as my grandmother said, you left that good job to do what?
Wow.
And
both of you guys.
Yeah. We had, but I think the thing was, kids when they're that young, like, that's the time to go do it because they don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know anything, and so.
I'm finding that's common too.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of entrepreneurs. They're in some crazy transition. Just get married, just having
kids.
kids.
We're also gluttons for punishment, right? We're like, let's add another challenge, right? Let's just throw another rock on the other side of the scale.
That's what I think is the thread. Wow.
But yeah, so they were. Both my kids have grown up in the agency. I think about it. My daughter was born 2 years later.
Yeah.
That's all she's ever known.
Yeah.
And I think it also has had a huge impact on on who she is and who she's becoming as she is a teenager and growing. But it was a natural part of the journey, man. And I think part of it, what was great for me, was having a business partner that was at the same life stage, going through the same things, because it's different when you got a partner who either doesn't have kids and doesn't understand why you got to leave early or why you just got to shut it down for a few hours.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're going through all of those things, each stage at the same time, it's a huge benefit, man. And I think that was a part of what worked well for us is from a life stage. I mean, he and I are a week apart. Our birthdays. His birthday is is a week before mine.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so very similar in terms of just where we were in our lives,
Okay.
kids at the same time. So it helped a lot. But I
Yeah.
think, it's interesting, even looking back on it, part of it for me is I was far from perfect in the journey, and it was a lot of learning. And I think, I spend a lot of time, as you said earlier, coaching and mentoring on the business side. And, I find myself finding even greater joy coaching and mentoring on the father side. And, and I had a great father, and you do hear all the stories of,
Same.
My pops was there,
Yeah.
hell, my parents got divorced when I was 14 and we all stayed with my dad.
Yeah.
And so I had a great example of what, a true father figure, not even just for us. I mean, my dad is like a father figure in the community.
Yeah.
And so I knew what that looked like.
Yeah.
And that was not something that I expected to, get patted on the back for. That's what you do.
Yeah, it's the expectation.
Right? It's the expectation.
Same. Yeah, that's how mine was.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's been an interesting part of the journey. I think for me, my journey's been a little unique. My son has special needs. He has autism, and I think I've been an open book about that.
Yeah.
Because I think, I recognized early on that as a community and as a culture, we don't tend to deal with conversations and issues around special needs very well. And I decided that, in using my platform and the fact that people paid attention to me because I did a commercial for Pepsi and all these other things, but to use that platform to have a different conversation. And so I've been an open book about my son's journey for the past, really 15 years since he was diagnosed.
Watching you mentor other folks, and we have a mutual friend, that I know you've helped coach him through his earlier stages of dealing with his child in that way, man, is remarkable. Because I think so many people are learning from me, and folks they just don't hear about these stories,
right?
And I think there's a tendency for a lot of folks, any difficult thing, sometimes when you're going through it, you feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
And you doing that it was beautiful to see, man. And I have so much respect because I can see a lot of folks, I can imagine how alone they felt. Yeah. But knowing that there's a community and there's somebody like to just go and ask a question
especially
to.
fathers.
Yeah.
Especially black fathers.
Just to ask somebody, like, man, what was this like?
Yeah.
Perspective, like.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah. No, black fathers, especially when it comes to special needs and sons, it's been interesting because I think you find that, we all have these visions for our sons, right? We have these visions for our children, If you're an athlete, he's going to be an athlete.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur, he's going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You find out that, sometimes God just has a different plan.
Yeah.
And, for me, the sooner I got comfortable with that, the better I was at being a father, because at that point it became about the kid and not my bullshit, and I think that was an important part of the journey, where once he was diagnosed, in some ways I went into the same mode I went to in solving a business problem. It's like, okay, this is what it is, what we got to do.
Yeah.
And we've been in what we got to do mode for the last, 15 years. Emotionally,
was that just take me to that point of emotion, right? Because there's two ways, or there's probably multiple ways, but one way, and it's a way that I've dealt with a lot of things that are difficult. I compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I get almost militant, man, robotic.
Robotic.
When something comes. What I'm starting to learn is that's not the healthiest of ways, right? Sometimes it's to ground yourself in the emotion. Yeah. The raw emotion of what you're feeling, and then chart a pathway forward, right? So in that moment for you, which route, where were you? Was it compartmentalization, or did you ground the emotion of what you were feeling?
I compartmentalized because my wife was emotional.
Got it.
And so I felt like I had to compartmentalize to be able to support.
Yeah.
And to be able to kind of figure out what we need to do and how to move forward. And not saying she was emotionally where she was, incapacitated.
No.
Not at all. But hers was more of a why and how.
Yeah.
And I in some ways treated it very black and white. Sometimes, I think to a fault, where it was just like, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So now, what we got to do? What are the services? What do we need to do for this kid to help? And I think the emotion for me came later.
Yeah.
And still comes.
Yeah.
I watched my kid, a few months ago, stand up at high school graduation and give a speech and come running back to the audience talking about, Dad, I did it. And this is a kid that wasn't talking at 5. And we didn't know, And so that's where the emotion comes from me. It's the reward of seeing the sacrifices that, my ex-wife made, the sacrifices that we made as a family and being blessed, one, to be able to do some of those things, right?
Yeah.
The services, the private schools, all those things. But to see the result of that, in the form of these milestones is, that's the emotional part of it for me, man. I mean, I think, sometimes that's the blessing and the curse of how we have to be as entrepreneurs. And
that's the pride, though.
Proud.
Like, even like when I listen to you, just like I'm smiling because I just know how proud you are.
Oh, man.
You know what I mean? That, and that's what you want. You know what I mean? Like, we want to be proud of our kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And whatever it is that they're choosing to do.
But it's a journey, man. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, look, parenthood is an imperfect practice. If you're a perfectionist, being a parent is probably the most difficult shit you ever going to do, because I promise you, you're going to fuck up.
Every day. Every day.
You are.
Look, this is a series of minor fuck ups on a daily basis.
Right. But it's continuing to push forward. It's learning, and it's continuing to do whatever it is that you feel is in the best interest of your child, man. And that's the journey.
Do you feel like you had I play football, right? So there's always that brother that had a kid that year, right, on the team. Freshman year through senior year in college, somebody on the team had a baby.
Yeah.
And it's for some reason they ball out that year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just used to call it the baby year.
Yeah.
Because if somebody was having a baby, I'm like, oh, they about to kill it this year. It is funny. I find myself feeling like this is my baby year, right? Even though I'm older, right? And 37.
Listen, that's very real. I'm telling you, look. So you've had yours.
Yep.
Our brother Tony Brown, the CEO of Breaker.
Yep.
His wife is pregnant. And I told him, I said, get ready, bro.
Baby
I
year.
said, you're focused now, but he's having a little girl. I'm like, the first time you hold that little girl, I said, one, hard decisions become much easier. I, to this day, have my kid's picture on my phone. And sometimes when I have to make a tough decision, I just look at my phone and I say, does either way have a more material impact on my kids, either positively or negatively? Then that's the tiebreaker.
Ooh.
And so the baby year is a very real thing, bro.
I was about
very
to,
real thing.
And I'm wondering, is that also with women? Because it damn sure is with.
I think it's different though. I think it's
gotta
different.
be different.
I think it's different because I think it's driven by, to a certain extent. I guess what I'm gonna say is traditional societal roles.
Got it. Yeah,
because as a father, you immediately go into protector and provider mode.
Yes.
Especially as an entrepreneur.
We call it the 3 Ps.
Yeah.
We were raised. It was like protect, provide, procreate.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you've already procreated. So
you've already done that one. Two. Yeah. You down to the other two. Get with it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think moms go into protector mode.
Yeah.
Heavy nurturing.
Yeah.
I mean, just, and I think that we go into more protector and provider mode.
Yeah.
Because, again, traditional societal roles say that's, in the absence
Yeah.
of both being able to do it, it
Yeah.
falls on the dad traditionally. And I think that's just the mentality, whether that's our reality. And I think society has evolved a lot.
Yeah.
But I think the mentality is, I got to take care of my family.
Yeah.
And whether you're running a rock, you selling hats, you whatever it is you're doing, I have to take that up a notch because now my responsibility is far greater.
Well, and I'll speak for me, but it was like, look, you have a child, right? And me with a little girl, she's not necessarily dependent on me for survival, right? Like I always tell people, like, my nipples ain't good for anything. Like, they don't do shit for her,
right?
Unfortunately. So if we're stranded and something happened, she's got a survival mechanism in her body for our child. I got to do something different. Yeah. So I got to contribute. And I feel like the desire as a dad is, man, you just want to add value. Yeah. Like you're just really desperately trying to find ways, because for me, I felt so helpless, man, through a lot of the process. And that was actually really hard for me. Yeah. Where it was, the pregnancy, you're not feeling the pregnancy. So you're doing the best you can to make her comfortable, right? To do something, but you can't take that pain. You can't take that discomfort. So that's struggle one.
Ice chips. That's about all you can do.
Yeah, that's you rubbing feet. You're doing what you can. Yeah. Then you go through the actual birthing process. Yeah. Whole different ball game. Right. I was all messed up. Yeah. Basically all I could do was pace the hallways and cry.
You know how you hold certain visuals from life in your mind, like you taking a snapshot and it's there.
100%.
Both of my kids. So my son was delivered by a C-section.
Okay.
And when he actually came out, the umbilical cord was around his neck. And so, my snapshot from that is them holding him. He was blue. My daughter, they handed her to me first because my wife was having some complications.
Yep.
And so I'm literally sitting there like while I'm watching this go on the table. And so I've got those two.
Locked.
So even when he's on that stage, or even when my daughter who's a thespian is on that stage, that's what I remember. That's who they are, to me at its core. And I think that's the connection, and those are the things that, it's interesting, man, because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, what I realize now that I'm on the backside of my journey is that, my role became even more important as they got older.
Yeah.
And I think it varies. It's going to vary depending on, the relationship dynamics with the mom and the dad, who they are as humans. My their mom is a nurturer. Yeah. My ex-wife is a nurturer and a very caring and empathetic person, and a very patient person, and having a kid with special needs. I mean, my son taught me patience I never knew I had. I was a very impatient person, still am to some extent, but
I was about to say, I'm like,
but with him,
I've seen a little bit of that.
Yeah, with him, you had to learn patience, man. Yeah. And they teach you things that, people always talk about, raising kids and you're teaching them. Hell, they teach you all the time. They teach you every day.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think again it comes down to just my desire to add value, and I'm looking at this, as we talk about this baby year, that first year as a dad, and that's the only one I know because that's the one I'm in, and what I've seen with everyone, you push so much harder because you're not sure what else to do.
Yeah.
Like
you got to put that energy somewhere.
Yeah, I got to put the energy because I'm like, I want to help.
Yeah.
I want to do something, but so much of the tasks I am useless. And to me that's a really hard thing to process, right? Mm-hmm. Like my whole life I've always been able to provide value, right? And especially as an entrepreneur, whether it's a service provider, whatever it is, right? Our job is to provide value on a daily basis.
Right.
That's what is directly tied to our existence.
Yeah.
And then you get into a moment where like, wow, I'm not the most critical component in this process right now.
In this equation,
right? And I think when you tell me about, in the later years, like, see, that's exciting to me because like that's where we shine. Like, okay,
right.
Now you game on. You know what I mean? Like you're absolutely, and it's known how needed you are.
Yeah. When my daughter was 6 and she wanted to start a lemonade stand, I'm like, cool.
That's me. Now, all right, I got it. That's my zone. You know?
Taught her the first lesson about investment. It's like we took it to the grocery store. Yeah. We bought all the supply. Well, it's crazy. Like my daughter's literally, man, been a little boss around my office like for her whole life. So she, wanted to do this lemonade stand. She was about 6, and went to the office, and took a few of my high price 6-figure creative directors and said, "Hey, I need you to help me with my campaign for my lemonade stand." So had her whole brand, everything. So I took it to the grocery store, and we bought all the supplies. I said, "Now I'm gonna teach you about ownership." I said, Dad just invested in your company. So technically, I own a little bit of your company. So we go home. She makes the lemonade. She puts the stand out. She puts her sign up in front of the house. And so it's her, my son, and her 2 cousins. One who is her age, the other one's about a year or 2 younger. And so I'm letting them do the lemonade stand. I'm just sitting in the back watching. And she starts putting the boys to work. These dudes are running down the street grabbing people. Come buy some lemonade. Come buy some lemonade.
She's got a sales organization.
Yeah. So lemonade was supposed to be a quarter.
Yeah.
So this lady comes by, and we had change. This lady comes by with $1. Gives her $1, buys 1 cup of lemonade, says, "Do you guys have any change?" My daughter said, "We don't have change." I said, "Come here." I said, "Lesson number 1, integrity in business. If you treat your customers right, they'll come back. You get a lady a change." So we go through it. They probably make, man, like $25.
Wow.
So
it's awesome.
So at the end, I said, "You got to pay your workers." She takes her 25. She gives her brother $1 and her 2 cousins $1 each. And one of the cousins starts crying. And I said, "Come here. Lesson number 2.
Treat you.
She owns the company. You work for her. She has a right to a certain extent to decide how much you make. If you want to control how much you make, own the company." At 6. At 6. And it stuck. Because she's still rocking.
Yeah.
But those are the times when you get the opportunity to pour who you are into your kids. And then when you see it start to, like, at 16, you start to really see it take hold.
Yeah.
I can't even describe it, man. I can't even describe it.
So in this journey now, right? So your daughter's 16,
Yeah.
your son's 18. You're into the college phase now, right? Or the just what's next.
Yeah.
So let me just ask it that way, right? What are you looking forward to, right, in this next phase?
So it's funny, man. I had to catch myself, man. 'Cause I took my daughter to Howard last week. We were in D.C. and we went to visit Howard, and it was her first college visit. And I caught myself because I found myself when I was talking to the guy on the tour saying shit about we, and I'm like, man, stop, dog. Don't be that dad. Like,
we speak French now.
Yeah. But it's interesting, man, because I think there's a thin line between living vicariously through your kids or learning from your experiences and making sure that they have a different experience. And so one of the things for me, again, it all worked out, but I didn't visit a bunch of schools. Matter of fact, I visited one school, the school I ended up going to. Didn't have much of a process. Got admitted.
You go all in on one. You just commit.
Got admitted on early admission and just accepted and stopped. And I told my daughter, like, you're gonna go through the process. She's a 4.4 student. Goes to a highly selective enrollment, performing and visual arts school. She's gonna have options, and I told her we're going to explore those options. She has a school in mind right now that she's like, that's where I'm going. And I'm like, okay. If that's how you feel a year from now and you still feel that strongly, great. But I'm going to make sure you get exposed to opportunities that you're just not even aware of right now. Yeah. And so the journey for her is very different. It's about now, we're ending in the junior year. As people that with kids at that age, that's the money year, right?
Yeah.
That's the year that colleges really look at. Because by the time you get to senior year,
it's done.
You are what you are. So, she understands this is the money year. You got to buckle down. As a theater kid, in a lot of ways, she has a major in high school. I mean, they spend half of their day on their art and then the other half on academics. So, she's taking AP classes but doing it. So we're doing all the things that we're told we have to do, right? Killing the ACT, killing the SAT, get the GPA, get the community. Let's put the package together.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it. Okay. And part of it is, again, taking what I've learned from my experiences and things that I didn't do. Candidly, listening to my white friends and the things they've been doing for generations and making sure that we're putting those things in places, but then also taking advantage of the advantages that we have in terms of just the power of culture and who my kid is and saying, hey, you know what? Stand out. Don't blend in.
Yeah.
And all of those things that ultimately will be a difference when it comes down to looking at her on paper versus another kid.
Yeah.
Because I've learned the game.
Yeah.
with my son, it's very different. He just graduated from high school. Was not on an academic college path. Just with some of the realities of special needs. But my goal for him has always been, once he was diagnosed, for him to live as full and independent life as he possibly could.
Yeah.
What that looked like, I don't know. You
Yeah.
keep pushing on the journey. You keep pushing out, and so that's the path he's on now. So
Yeah.
he's in a postgraduate program that literally focuses on life skills, job skills, and work placement.
That's awesome.
For me, it's interesting because as entrepreneurs, I think we always look at everything and say, okay, how can I build on this, right?
Yeah.
And so we started a family foundation years ago called Gabriel's Home, named after my son. And at the time, I was sitting on the board of Autism Speaks and had heard this crazy statement, fact, data, that the average Black and Latino kid was diagnosed with autism somewhere between 9 and 11.
Wow.
The average white kid was diagnosed between 3 and 4. And so that gap had a huge impact on getting services, getting treatments, just overall development, and not having that head start. That white kid has a 6 to 8 year head start on just getting services. And so we started the foundation at the time to simply just close that gap.
Yeah.
What are the things that we can do to help organizations like Autism Speaks, or just help parents? Because part of it is, when I started to really look into it, it wasn't just about, access to services and some of those. Some of it was on us.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was our cultural reluctance to deal with and address issues around. We were always not always, but often he'll grow out of it. Oh, it's just a delay. Oh, that's just how he is, as opposed to, no, your kid has a condition, and there are things you can do to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we started the foundation for. And now, actually, I've actually shifted the focus of the foundation, and we're really kind of ramping up to lean into focusing on work placement, life skills, and job skills for special needs young adults, with an emphasis on families of color.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, inspired by my son's journey, and in a lot of ways to continue to help to assist with his journey, because the thing that we learn as entrepreneurs is it's much easier to get things done when you have a platform.
Absolutely.
And so when you can have a platform, or you can build a platform that, helps to push forward your personal goals for your family, but then also contribute to the greater good, why not? Right? And so, with my son, his first day of school was Monday.
Yeah.
And, he's super excited. He's fired up. And so for me, this is the next step in the journey, man. And again, at some point, I want to go sit in his house, put my feet on his couch, and eat up his damn food,
See, this is so that leads me to really one of my final questions, right? Because the question was, what's next? Right? You immediately go into both of your kids.
Yeah.
Real typical dad shit.
Yeah.
Right? So what's next for you then in that journey, right?
So it's interesting. I mean, I think, it's funny. People talk about, LeBron wanting to play with Bronny, right?
Yeah.
And what I actually love is, like, my daughter and I work on stuff together.
Yeah.
We come up with ideas. We work on creative together. I would love nothing more than to actually work with her in my company. Real talk, it's probably not going to happen, because that's like 6-7 years off. So I don't necessarily know if I'm going to be sitting in that same
Never
space.
say never.
6-7. But, I mean, I think for me, man, COVID was a blessing, brother.
Yeah.
COVID was a blessing. I mean, and I think it did this to a lot of people, but it made me slow down. And as much as I think I've been involved in my kids' lives, I spent more time with my kids in this 18-month, almost 2-year period than I had in any other 18-month, 2-year period in their lives. And that's divorced.
Wow.
We still spent more time together, and it was very rich time, because, the conversations now that you can sit and have with them at 16 and 18, one, it's just amazing to see them now as humans that think on their own, have their own personalities, have their own thoughts, but you also start to see the fruits of the things that you poured into them when they were younger, that you either weren't even realizing you were pouring into them, or weren't sure if it was sticking. And so for me now, man, I mean, a lot of it is just continuing to try to build on the things that are going to make the future for them that much better, you know? Whether that's building wealth, whether that's creating opportunity. I mean, in a lot of ways, you know, I'm just looking to enjoy my life and be happy. And part of what enjoying my life and being happy is grinding. You know, I'm not looking to go sit still anytime soon because that's who I am. But it's grinding with a purpose, and it's grinding on my terms, so I have the ability to step away when I want to spend time with what's now, you know, I think the most important thing, which is them.
All right, so now my final question.
Okay.
Right? We're going to land this plane. I know I kept you up here for a while, and we got some picanha to make.
We can do this all night.
Folks don't realize this brother's a bad chef too, so we're gonna have a little battle royale here after. But
there you go.
But selfishly, right? So I'm gonna ask advice that you have for new fathers, young fathers, entrepreneurs, corporate execs, etc.
Yeah.
Having gone through that journey now.
Yep.
What bit of wisdom can you impart on us?
You know, and I think this is the learning I have that, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Always.
I was able to quadruple the size of my agency from my living room in the past 18 months. I wasn't on a plane. I wasn't working super late at night. All the things that you think you have to do as an entrepreneur to be successful. I wish I knew that back when I was getting on that plane and leaving my young kids with their mom and doing the things that I felt I absolutely had to do again to provide and protect. There is a balance that's achievable that I don't think we always embrace. And for me, I think that's my advice. My advice is prioritize your kids first and foremost, not just in your mind and in what you say, but in your actions. You know, perfect example, I was here last week.
Yep.
And I'm back 5 days later. I very well could have just spent this week working in Soho House downtown LA, taking all these meetings and things I haven't been able to take in the middle of this pandemic, but it was my kids' first day of school. So I went home. And candidly, 10 years ago, I probably would have stayed in LA. And I realized that it's just the business conversation is going to be here. That first day of school, first day of my son's post-grad program, first day of my daughter's junior year, those first don't come back, bro. They don't. You know, and in the process of the grind, I missed some firsts. And I advise, you know, brothers that have the opportunity, because they're at the beginning of that journey, don't miss those firsts. The rest of the shit gonna be there. And you're dope. You're gonna find a way to make it work. The rest of the shit's gonna be there. Don't miss those firsts.
Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap it up because that was a whole word. Man, I thank you, my brother, for coming out.
Thank you for having me, man. For sure.
I'm excited to continue to watch you as a dad,
brother,
as an entrepreneur, as a leader.
I'm excited to watch you, my man.
Yeah, look, and I'm taking all the pointers, all the coaching. Man, I appreciate it, man. This was beautiful, and man, with that, you guys, look, it's another episode of World's Greatest Game, man. We just wrapping up. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, share it, send it to a friend, all that. This brother Ahmed just dropped some real bars on a topic that I don't think we touch on enough, and that's the journey of being an entrepreneur, but most importantly, being a dad. So thank you, my brother. With that, we out.
Thank you.
Man.